Hi guys, it's TripleC, and this is a Lenovo Slim 5 Pro. It's a quite an unassuming laptop. It's pretty clean, not much on it. It's not a gaming laptop, but don't let that fool you. This is one heck of a laptop, and today I'm going to review it. And then we start right off on the exterior. Look at this thing. This is a 14-inch laptop, and not much at the front except for the Lenovo logo, which is basically on all this lines of product. And the back, we got quite a bit of bins, and other than that, nothing else. There's no bins on the side. But let's take a look at the side. On this side, we have two USB-A port, and we have a SD card slot. We got a couple of indicators, and on this side, we have USB Type-C charging, 65 watt, and we have a HDMI port, and we have another USB Type-C. This is a USB 3.1, and we have a headphone jack. Other than those, nothing else. If you look at the back, it's got some rubber feet to keep it from sliding off the table, and that'll be that. And of course, getting a new laptop, usually with a video like this, I have a story to tell, and I'm going to tell it. So, the Lenovo S340 that I got nearly 2 years ago did me a lot of good. Basically, all my work is done on it. The battery life is really good. You can do some light editing, but those light editing, well, these days, they kind of become a little bit heavier editing, and I need a stronger machine to do it, and that's portable. However, I don't really want to fork out too much money on the full-on with discrete graphic card type of laptop, so I need something else that's much more powerful, modern, and kind of wanted that USB Type-C charging. So I needed a new laptop, and I was in the market for one, and this is what I choose. So I picked this laptop for numbers of reasons, but first, let's take a look at the specs. This laptop is powered by an AMD Ryzen 7 5800U processor. It's a 7nm. This is actually a Gen 3 processor for the mobile processor. It's a U model, so it's the low wattage one, but it has 8 core and 16 threads. That actually output quite a lot of power in comparison to other computers that I also have at home, regardless if it's laptop or desktop. That is running 16 gigabytes of DDR4 memory, which is soldered on board actually, running at somewhere around 3200 megahertz, according to this anyway. So the graphic is Radeon 7. It doesn't have a discrete graphics card. That's the probably the only unfortunate part of this laptop, but the combination does help it output some numbers, which we will see later at the benchmarks and some of the gameplays. This laptop already have a 512 gigabyte of internal storage, but you cannot add another hard drive for this one. So you're only relying on that internal drive, which I could upgrade to maybe a terabyte, maybe 2 terabyte, but I would like to keep my work and my games and stuff like that separate. So I do need a second drive, but this is where I made the compromise. I'm willing to use the external drive for my games or for my work. I have a separate drive for that. Here you see, this is a SSD box that supports USB 3.1 Gen 2 and is toolless, which I have the terabyte Crucial in here. And for work, I have a rather small Samsung T5 500 gigabyte external SSD, which so far it works pretty well for me, but it is a compromise, to be honest, because there's always that thing where you have to worry about ejecting the disk, and when Windows doesn't allow you to eject the disk. But it's something that it's not something that I cannot solve. I can work with it, but for you, if you're looking to buy this laptop, you can only get one hard drive. You cannot get a second drive to install to it. So maybe there's something to consider if it's a deal breaker for you. But then performance-wise, if it's any good external drive to use on daily basis to load video games or for work, well, here I have 4 gigabytes of Windows 11 image for the Raspberry Pi, and let's just throw it to the disk. As you can see, it's running around 350 megabytes a second, which is, in my opinion, plenty for SSD, like a standard SSD. So I'm actually perfectly fine with that speed. It loads game pretty fast. No complaints. One of the selling points of the Slim 5 Pro over the S340 is actually screen aspect ratio. The Slim 5 Pro have a 16 by 10 aspect ratio that is 2240 by 1400. Just take a look at the two side by side. You have so much more screen aspect for video editing and various other purposes. The higher resolution, allowing a lot more things to show on the screen, which is something I like. On the S340, it's a 1080p screen, and obviously in comparison, it just doesn't have as much screen aspect. Just look at the difference. There's so much more screen for the same 14-inch size. Putting it side by side again, as you can see, the Slim 5 Pro have the exact same keyboard layout compared to the S340, same location for the power button, and a very similar mouse pad, just slightly wider in comparison. Overall aesthetics, it's basically very similar to my eyes. So one of the things about Slim 5 Pro is that it's supposed to be slimmer compared to the other 14-inch laptops. So compared to S340, it does seem to be slimmer, but in my opinion, really not by much. But it is in fact slimmer, so Slim 5 Pro is slim. Both laptops have same types of main SSD storage, so the boot out speed is really quick. So here we have the two camera apps open up just to see which one has a better webcam. Well, let's take a look. So, I think, in my opinion, I think still the S340 got the better webcam, but what do I know? Both of them are equally awful. But, I still like the S340 webcam just slightly better. So in comparison to S340, you have the ability to actually close up that webcam physically if you like to. And the Slim 5 Pro does not have that. It just have the camera itself and the LED indicator that when it's on. One of the interesting thing about Slim 5 Pro is its camera is also an IR camera. As you can see here from the camera, which you cannot really see from the naked eye, but with the camera you can see the IR is flashing when I open the lid. So when you open the lid, the IR is going to detect if somebody's sitting there, and you automatically power on the laptop, which is a nice feature. So let's take a look at the internals. The Slim 5 Pro obviously have a much larger cooler compared to the S340. It does have the 5800U, which is much faster CPU. So you probably require a lot more to cool in comparison to the 3500U that is in the S340. So the cooler takes out a lot of space, and the battery takes out a lot of space. The battery is also larger compared to the S340, not by too much, but it is larger. And they take out so much space that it just looks like there is no room for anything else. The S340 have room for another stick of memory, and then there's a 2.5-inch bay for another hard drive. On the Slim 5 Pro, there is just no room for anything else other than the main storage and the Wi-Fi module. Both laptops are so similar in design, it's basically the same series. The speaker look exactly the same size. So benchmark, let's take a look at Cinebench R23 and compare to all of my machines that I own right now, which includes the Ryzen 5 2600 running at 4 GHz and Ryzen 3 3300X running at default settings, and as well as the 3500U on the S340. Just look at those threads going at it. That's always a beautiful sight. So at best I have run 10,248 for the multi-core score, which is pretty amazing. It beat out all of my other machines and then with that number with a good margin. Just look at this chart. Okay, first off is Soul Calibur 6. This is running at 2240 by 1400 and median settings. So for the most part, it's over 50 frames per second. Very often running at 60 frames per second, anywhere between 51 to 60. From the naked eyes, it looks very smooth to me, but maybe not for competitive gaming, but it is running really well at such a high resolution. You lower down the resolution or lower down the spec just a little bit, you'll run even smoother, but I'm happy with this result. Next up is Forza Horizon 4. This game is running at 1680 by 1050 at low settings, which is running for the most part really smoothly. It does have some slowdowns at times, which it's okay in my book, but it can get a little bit annoying. I'm not too sure why that is. It could be any numbers of reasons. Maybe I should look into the settings a little bit more just to see if there's any bottlenecking, but overall it runs pretty smoothly and it's enjoyable. Next up is Hot Shots Racing. It's one of those arcade racing games, got really vibrant colors. The Slim 5 Pro does have really vibrant screen. So this game is running at 2240 by 1400, high resolution. It's not a really hard game to run, but when it runs smoothly, it does look really nice, which it does on the Slim 5 Pro. Next up is Dirt 5. Dirt 5, I'm running it at 1440 by 900, everything low, and and it's running around 40 frames per second, anywhere between 35 to 40, somewhere there. It doesn't run very smoothly, but then again, it doesn't run very smoothly on any of my machines. You need something a lot more powerful to run this game smoothly, but it is able to run and playable speed, which I'm happy with that. But really, who cares? Dirt 5 isn't very good. They don't even have replays for this game. Okay, American Truck Simulator is running at 1920 by 1200 and median settings. It is running a solid 60 frames per second. Next up is Shadow of the Tomb Raider. It is running at 1280 by 800 at low settings. It is running at the benchmark, and the benchmark gives me a 45 frames per second average, which is playable but not exactly great. And here's a real Dirt series, Dirt Rally 2.0. This is running at 1280 by 800 at median settings. This is the best setting that I find. It is running at, for the most part, in its 50s frames per second, but it's a smooth enough gameplay. And of course, you can set it up to 1920 by 1200 and low settings, and it will give you solid 60 frames per second or more. But the visual is, but you're missing out on the visual effects. Of course, when you have a machine like this, you always wanted to do a little bit of emulation, which I'm running a coin ops here, front end, and let's take a look at the Dreamcast emulator, running at Crazy Taxi 2. It's running really smoothly, looks like a solid 60 frame. I didn't have the frame rate thing open, but just look at this thing, it runs really nice with a Dreamcast game. This is PS2 emulator running Outrun 2006. As you can see, it runs really smoothly, which is nice. And let's take a look at a few PS3 games on PS3 emulator. This is Hegemony no Ippo, the fighting for PS3. It is running at 30 frames per second as the game is running at 30 frames per second. And it is staying on that 30 frames at the whole time. Next up is Rage Racer 7 for the PS3. It's running at solid 60 frames per second. Next up is Virtual Tennis 4. It's also running at 60 frames per second. Keep in mind, all of those games are running at its default settings, which the emulator defaults is 720p. Okay, last gameplay on the list today. This is Super Mario 3D Land for the Wii U. And as you can see, also running at full speed, 60 frames per second all the way through. So overall, this is a great laptop. It's got a great screen. Just look at that, so vibrant. 16:10 aspect ratio, 2K resolution, 2240x1400. And there are some other features I haven't even mentioned it. For example, the USB Type-C port now supports video out. It supports that DP out. So that means you can connect to a monitor that supports a Type-C connectivity, which I have tried it and it worked. The old laptop S340 doesn't have it. That's a nice feature. Or to support Dolby Atmos sound. With a USB-C charging, you no longer need very bulky charger. Now I can get an aftermarket, of course, go look for a reliable one. I can get an aftermarket gallium nitride chargers, which it's the size of a standard phone charger. The keyboard also have a backlight LED. It's a white LED, which looks nice, help you to see in dark, works really well. It is slimmer overall, so it felt much lighter than the S340, so it would be really nice to carry around because it's so unassuming. It just looks like any other laptop. It's so clean, so aesthetically it looks really nice just to carry around. The IR camera, so great, it works so well, and it's kind of like a welcome new feature just to make the whole experience a little bit better. Where you open out the screen, it just detects if you are there. You walk away for a while, you'll turn off the screen, stuff like that, which is a welcome addition. Alright, so that would be all for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.